Right, hello everybody, welcome back to The Golden Sky. Today it is Sunday the 7th of September 2025. I'm Tom, and as always, if you're here on YouTube, thank you very much for joining me today. Just before we get into the video, before we get into anything else, I want to say a massive thank you to everybody for showing the unbelievable support on the last video, the Isaac video, and just generally on the channel. And most importantly, say a massive thank you for everybody helping me hit 100 subscribers. At the time of making this video right now, we've just hit it. It's pretty amazing, to be honest. I know some people might watch and think 100's small, but it's kind of wild to me that 100 people have subscribed to watch me talk about football. So it's really appreciate it, really grateful. And let's keep going. I guess the next target is 150. So can we get to 150 subs? Again, guys, please like the video, comment away, and subscribe to the channel. If you do enjoy today's video, podcast listeners, 5-star ratings and reviews. We love you as well over here at The Golden Sky. And today, in today's video, still in the international break, so coming up with some different bits and bats to show you guys. And today I thought it'd be interesting to do my personal tier list of every Premier League team's transfer window, summer transfer window, and basically rank them. I've got a tier list that we'll go to in a second, and we'll go through each team, their incomings and their outgoings, and we'll put them in a tier list and see who had the best and the worst transfer window, and we'll go through each team. So there's a bit for everybody in here, not just your Liverpool fans. So if you're a fan of a different club and you've come to watch, then welcome. We talk about different teams here from time to time as well. So I hope you do enjoy, and just again, everybody, thank you so much for helping me hit 100 subscribers. It is yeah, it's pretty amazing, and I'm really grateful. So thank you very much, and let's get into today's video without any further delays or anything else. Let's get into the tier list. Okay, so as you can see in front of me here, we have the tier list. We have all the teams, and we're just going to go through one by one in alphabetical order. So if you're an Arsenal fan, good for you, and if you're a Wolves fan, please watch the whole video until you get to Wolves. Don't just skip to you. But yes, let's go through every team. I've also got all the transfers up. And I should say, before we get into this, a couple disclaimers or a couple points to note. Any figures of transfer fees, I'm taking them from Transfermarkt, if anyone knows that website. They're all in euros, and that's what I'm using. I'm not bothering to convert, or if Transfermarkt's figures are wrong, I don't care. All right, we're using those, and that's what you're going to have to live with as well. If I talk about figures, it's from there. And also, another thing I want to make note of is, I, believe it or not, don't know everything about every single one of these players, okay? And some people will pretend online that they do know everything about every footballer because they are scared into thinking that if they don't know everything about every footballer, it means they don't know about football. And that to them is the most important thing on the planet. I think it's absolutely okay to not know things about every footballer because simply you can't possibly watch them all. It's impossible. So why lie about it? If I don't know something, I'm going to tell you I don't know. But I'd like to think I do know quite a bit. So let's get into it without any more stalling for time. Let's do Arsenal first as our first team. So we might move them around once we put them on the tier list, but let's start with Arsenal. So Arsenal, big club, and they spent a lot of money. They actually had the highest net spend of any team, including Liverpool, who bought 2 players for £100 million plus. So big investment by Arsenal into Arteta again. I think they've reached £1 billion now spent since Arteta took them over. So time to win is now for Arsenal. But they made a lot of signings. So as we know, they brought Zubamendi in. I think that's a good signing. I think he's a solid player. I wanted him at Liverpool last summer until Gravenberch had a breakout season. So I can't sniff at Zubamendi at all. I think he'll be pretty good for Arsenal, although I don't think he's maybe as game-breaking as some of the Arsenal fans might think he is. I think Arsenal's best signing is Eze, who is the last signing, of course, that they made. I think we've all seen Eze's quality at Palace. We've all seen it for England now. He's playing as well. I really like Eze. I think he's a brilliant player, and I'm genuinely a bit gutted that Arsenal ended up with him. I would have preferred him to go to Spurs because Spurs aren't as much of a threat to Liverpool as Arsenal are. So I think based on my feeling and reaction, I can tell Eze is going to be a really good signing for Arsenal. I think he will elevate them quite a lot. Their other biggest signing was Victor Gyökeres, who I kind of have the opposite thoughts on. I don't know if anyone's seen my thoughts on Gyökeres when Liverpool played Arsenal in any of those videos. I don't think Gyökeres is going to be very good for Arsenal. I think he'll score a few goals. I think I predicted 13 goals he'll score this year for them in the Prem. But he's a lumbersome striker. I watched Sweden's game the other day. He doesn't impress me at all. And I don't think he'll be a success in the Premier League, so I don't rate that signing. And then Madueke is a similar vein. I think that's a really strange signing. I've got 56 million euros in front of me here from Madueke. Chelsea made a profit on him. That doesn't make sense to me at all. I would say he failed at Chelsea and then gets the move to Arsenal. But there we go. And they bought Mosquera, they bought Norgard. I think they're solid signings. I think Norgard's like solid enough for a cheap deal. A bit more depth. And then Mosquera looks like a good young centre-back, in all fairness. They've also loaned in Hincapié. Also, I might butcher names here. I'll try my best. But Hincapié from Leverkusen, another centre-back. So Arsenal now have genuinely about 7 centre-backs. I don't know how many they need or want, but they have him as well. I think he's a good player. It's just, for me, I don't know how much these signings, Mosquera, Norgard, and Hincapié, move the needle, because Arsenal already have so many players in this position. For me, it doesn't move the needle all that much. I think you have to factor in, when you're doing these transfer window videos, you have to factor in the outgoings as well. And Arsenal basically sold nobody. They let Nuno Tavares and Marquinhos go for a combined 8 million. And then they loaned Kivior out to Porto, who barely played, except for when they had injuries last season. They basically didn't recoup any money of what they invested. And so for that reason, I think you have to knock it down. And also, when I think of Arsenal's incomings, I think Eze is a top signing. I think Zubimendi's a good signing. And then the rest don't inspire me at all, really. I think Mosquera is probably the next one I'd pick out of that. Maybe Hincapié on loan. But Gyökeres, I think, is a bad signing. Madueke, I think, is a bad signing. So for me, starting somewhat controversially, I'm going to put them in B tier. Because I just don't think their window is as good as maybe some people do. Because I'm not high on Gyökeres or Madueke, or, I mean, they loaned Kepa. Like, that doesn't do anything for me. Look, Eze's 27 as well. He's not 22. Like, he's a great player, but you got to factor everything in here. And I think Arsenal are a B tier. They could be here maybe if you hire on Gyökeres and Madueke, but for me, it's only here. I think they've made 1 or 2 good signings, and the rest are a bit hit and miss. So I put them in B tier. And we'll move on to Aston Villa. So Villa had a slow window. I think we can all agree with that. I know there's a Villa fan where I work, and he was frustrated with Villa's business. But on the last, on deadline day, in the last few days, they really stepped up their business. And he was much happier, a much happier Villa fan at work. So what business did they do? Well, they bought Evan Gassond from Nice, who had a good season at Nice last year. I did see a little bit of this guy, not loads, but I have seen a bit of him. He looks like a pretty solid player. He's played a few games for Villa already. He's a striker, 24 years old. Like, he's not a superstar in my eyes, but he looks like he could be good. To be honest, a similar level-ish to Watkins. I maybe put Watkins a little bit above him just because Watkins is Prem proven. So I think it helps Villa's squad, but I don't think it really elevates them to the next level. And then they also, on deadline day, they got Harvey Elliott on a loan with, I think it's a mandatory option to buy. So Elliott's gone to Villa from Liverpool. I think that's a great signing. As a Liverpool fan, I think Elliott has a lot of quality. He just didn't have the game time available here, and Slot didn't quite fancy him, because for me, he's a bit of an in-between player. He's sort of in between being a number 10. He's in between being a winger. He's not quite fast enough to play out wide, but he's not quite physical enough to play number 10 all the time. He's kind of in between. I think at a club like Villa, he'll be much better suited to that free role. I think he plays best in. Liverpool, they have to do a lot of running, so I think that's a good signing. And for quite a cheap deal as well. I think it's a £35 million option to buy, which is a good deal. They also took a punt on Sancho. I mean, I don't really know what to make of Sancho these days. He's only 25 still, but for me, it's like he's a bit of a lost cause. Take another flyer on him. Maybe he turns into something good. They kind of did similar with Rashford last year, and it worked out pretty well for Villa. So maybe Sancho has a bit of a resurgence at Villa, but who knows? They got Lindelof on a free, and they also got Marco Bizot If anybody has seen Emery's interview, you'll know what that was. A goalkeeper for basically no money, with all the Emi Martinez stuff going on. They did sell Jacob Ramsey to Newcastle. I think he's a decent player, but I don't necessarily think it's a massive hole in the Villa squad. And they also loaned out Leon Bailey, who's probably the only other player they lost who played consistently last year. But again, not a massive issue there. But Villa just don't know. The deadline day stuff makes it a little better for me, but I think they've had a worse window than Arsenal. I think you have to say that. So for me, they have to go in C tier, but I think they'll be top end of C tier by the time that we do get to the end of this. So we'll give Villa a C. We might move them up to low B later on, but for now, they go in C tier. Okay, and we'll go to Bournemouth next. So Bournemouth, I'm actually going to start. Oh, excuse me. I'm actually going to start with Bournemouth's outgoings because I think this is where Bournemouth really excel. The size that Bournemouth are, to make 238 million euros of sales in one summer is just absolutely amazing. And this is why they are where they are. Because they are so well run and they are producing top players who they can sell on time and time again. When you look at the top three, Zabarnyi goes to PSG, Dean Howson goes to Real Madrid, Milos Kerkez goes to Liverpool. Huge fees for those three players combined. Obviously, they lose a lot of quality there, but you have to give Bournemouth credit. For where Bournemouth are, their stadium's so small. The club is historically a small club. They are so well run, and I admire so much about Bournemouth. I really, really like them. They also sold Django Utara for big money to Brentford after he had a good season last year. And then a couple other minor outgoings, Jaden Anthony and Philip Billing, leaving as well, who also weren't at the club last year. They were out on loan. But not only that, Bournemouth replaced them with pretty good players, I think, as well. So they get Diakite in to replace, I guess, Howson or Zabarnyi, whichever one you want to look at it. And he looks pretty solid to start the season. I've been quite impressed with him. I did see him in the Champions League, the odd game for Lille. And again, he looks quite good on the ball. He looks quite powerful. He's 24 years old, so he still has room to improve as well. And they're going for quite a nice deal. I don't necessarily know that he's one they'll sell on for big money in a few years' time, but I think he looks like a solid player, and that's what Bournemouth need to make sure they keep getting in these good players. So I like that signing. They got Petrovic in from Chelsea to replace Kepa. I think that's an upgrade. I actually really like Petrovic. I think he's a pretty good keeper. And already Bournemouth have kept 2 clean sheets out of their 3 games so far this season, only conceding goals to Liverpool. So I think the defence is showing that even though they've made big sales there, they still had that quality. They also got Ben Doak from Liverpool. A bit of a punt, really, there. I mean, he's 19 years old. He wasn't really going to get game time at Liverpool. I've watched a lot of Ben Doak, obviously being a Liverpool fan. I've watched basically every minute he's played professionally. And I've watched him in the youth team a little bit as well. And he's very good at dribbling, but he's very much... He needs to add moves to his game. He likes a left foot step over onto his right foot. And when he plays right wing, that makes him basically always go to the byline to cross the ball in. He needs to improve his end product a lot. There's a lot he needs to work on, but he certainly has talent. He certainly has a bit of quality. And for only 20 million, it's worth the punt. And I quite like the signing from Bournemouth there. He could definitely be one they sell on for big money if it works out. They've got Adley in to basically replace Utara. I think that's pretty much like for like, although Adley's probably a bit more established amongst the European sides of football. Played for Leverkusen last year in Champions League. They've got an 18-year-old centre-back in from Red Star Belgrade. I'm going to try and say his name. I'm even reading it right now. Milosavljevic. Listen, I can't say I've heard of this guy, to be honest, but he'll probably be class. And then they did get Trufer to replace to replace Kerkez, who looks fantastic. He looks really, really good. Really impressed with Trufer. So I think that's a great signing. So when you factor everything in there from Bournemouth, it's hard to say they've had a bad window at all, despite the fact they've lost a lot of players. But I don't think it's an amazing window, and so for that reason, I put them maybe just below Arsenal in B tier, I think. They made some good signings. They've sold a lot of players, so you have to factor in the quality of player they've lost. But they made a lot of money, and I give them credit for that. But I just don't think you can put them above Arsenal's window of how Arsenal had problems in the squad that they've tried to address. I think Bournemouth might be a little short in the players they've sold. But we'll see. These young players they buy always seem to turn out to be good. They're a bit like Brighton. So let's see. I'll put them here for now. Again, we might move later on in the video. Okay, Let's go to Brentford then. So, like I just said, Brentford bought Django Utara from Bournemouth. I actually think it's a good signing for Brentford. He's a very all-action type player. I remember one of his first games for Brentford a couple of years ago. He played Liverpool and he played on the right wing, and he was really dangerous. And I remember thinking, who is this guy they've just produced out of nowhere? I think he won a penalty. It might have been off Van Dijk. We actually lost that game, I think, and it was the game after we beat United 7-0. Anyway, I'm getting into Liverpool history now. Yeah, he looks like a good signing. I think they'll play him up front, but also capable of playing on the wing. Does a lot of defensive work as well. I just really like him. I think he's a good player. He already scored for Brentford as well on his debut against Villa. I think that's going to work out. It's a good signing. I like it. Then the others, they're interesting at Brentford, to be honest. They get Anthony Malambo in from Feyenoord, 20-year-old attacking midfielder. I think he looks like a good player. I do quite like him. I've spoken about him before. But Premier League ready, I'm not so sure, to be honest. I think he could struggle a little bit, but there's certainly talent that he has. But number 10 for Brentford. It depends how Mark Andrews sets up for Brentford. I don't know. I don't see how much game time he's going to get this season. I do like Coyote signing from Fiorentina. I think he was good for Brentford at the back end of last year when he was playing a few games, and I actually really like him. I think he's quite powerful, athletic. Maybe looks a little awkward on the ball, but I think he's got that really long throw, which is a weapon we're seeing a lot of teams using now. I think he looks pretty solid defensively, and like I said, he's super athletic, super strong, so he makes it quite solid on that right-hand side, playing right back for Brentford. I quite like him. Kelleher in the net, I think, is an upgrade from Flecken. We've seen him at Liverpool. He's a really top keeper. I just think the spotlight's... I don't want to say the spotlight's on him less or more at Brentford, because Liverpool are a massive club, but now he is the out-and-out number one. It is difficult to be that out-and-out number one, to come under the firing line. I think he's already had a few dodgy moments for them in the first few games, but I think he'll come good, and they got him for quite a cheap deal, so I'm giving them credit for that signing. And they get Jordan Henderson and Reece Nelson on loan. Henderson for a bit of experience, I guess, to kind of replace Norgard in what he was for Brentford. And then Reece Nelson's a bit of a punt. I don't rate Reece Nelson much, really, these days. But Brentford were decimated in the sales. I mean, they sell Brian and Burma, they sell Johan Visser. We'll get into those later. They go to respective Premier League clubs. They also sold Norgard to a Premier League club, and they sold Flecken to Bayer Leverkusen. I think they've been absolutely decimated there, to be honest. And for that reason, I really do think they've had a pretty, I would say, lower than average window. They've been decimated in quality, and they haven't really replaced. I mean, they're losing Burma and Visser, the front two, both top players in the Premier League, and they buy Django Utara. And that's kind of it, isn't it, really, to replace them? So for me, I mean, they've got Igor Thiago, who scored a few goals already this season. He was injured basically all of last year. I don't think they've had a great window, and I put them C tier, and they're honestly almost here, to be honest. They might end up here, but I think they're low end of C tier for me, Brentford, this season. Okay. Brighton next. Now, to be honest, quite a quiet window for Brighton, all in all. I mean, outgoings, they sold João Pedro, they sell Adingra, they sell Estupinian. These are names we've heard at Brighton for a little while now. João Pedro, clearly the biggest, I think a big loss. I think he was Brighton's best player last year. Maybe Mitoma and maybe Welbeck, but I think João Pedro, the most talented, the best young player they had, outside of maybe Baliba, goes to Chelsea, already looks good at Chelsea, so I think that's a big loss. And then their incoming's a little strange to me. So they sign an 18-year-old Greek striker called Kostoulas. I've never seen him play in my life. He's probably going to be really good, but for now he's not even playing, so a little strange for that one. They get De Kuiper, who I actually like. I think he's a good left back, but I mean, is he that much better than Estupinian? I know Estupinian had sort of issues with maybe the manager, so you've got to factor that in. But I don't know. De Kuiper's pretty good, but for me, he doesn't move the needle from Brighton to say, oh, what an amazing window you signed Maxim De Kuiper. They get Tom Watson and Diego Coppola from Sunderland and Hellas Verona, respectively, and these are both young players. Like, this is Brighton's model. Again, I don't know much about either of these two, apart from Coppola is absolutely massive, and Tom Watson scored a goal in the playoff final, I believe, for Sunderland. Like, I don't know much, so I can't comment all that much. for me, it's not the best transfer window, really. Also, a couple in the sort of the strange one that they randomly loaned out Matty O'Reilly to Marseille on deadline day or thereabouts, despite him only being there for 1 year last year. Viewed as quite an exciting signing when they signed him. Had some injuries last season, but then actually started Brighton's opening fixtures and scored a goal in those fixtures as well. Scored a penalty. I think it's a little strange. And I'm not the biggest fan of this window for Brighton, to be honest. So for me personally, I'm going to put them in C tier, and I'm going to put them just below Villa. I think Villa had a slightly better window, and I'm put Brighton here. I'm not the biggest fan of that window. João Pedro, Matty O'Reilly leaving, Lamptey leaving as well, although he was constantly injured. Just not the biggest fan of the signings they've made. They need a bit more time, of course, but yeah, not impressed with Brighton. Okay, Burnley next, who are genuinely one of the hardest teams to judge, I think, in this video. And the reason for that is, obviously, they're a promoted side. They need to make investment, and they have. They certainly have done that. They've signed a lot of players, but how good are the players they've signed? Well, that's the thing. They have to take punts being where they are. I'm not sure they've done well enough. And what I mean by that is goals, specifically for Burnley. They signed a striker, but it's Broha. He's been bouncing around clubs in the Premier League for a few years now. Chelsea sold him. Chelsea up next. We'll get to them. He doesn't move the needle for me. I don't think he's going to really be banging in the goals for Burnley to help keep them up. Jaden Anthony signed on a permanent deal, and he's looked good to start the season so far. But he was already there last year, so I don't know how much credit I'd give them for that signing. He was on loan. Ugochukwu the biggest money signing they've made, again from Chelsea as well. Again, a real punty player, not had many minutes. It's hard to judge, guys. It really is. I mean, okay, they get Dubravka and they get Walker in on free transfers, each of them, basically 36 and 35 years old. Adds a bit of experience, bit of Prem experience. I think it will help, but I don't know, maybe a bit past the sell-by date on both those players, especially Walker, I think, a little bit past his sell-by date. Marcus Edwards is kind of inconsistent level. And then they signed a few that I don't really know all that much about. They get Thigoldenskyowner from Lazio. We never heard of this guy in my life. Hartman from Feyenoord. Actually looks like half-decent left-back from what I've seen, but haven't seen much. And then they get Florentino Luis from Benfica. This is a bit of a weird signing. Florentino Luis, not all that long ago, was being linked with top clubs. Even some Liverpool fans wanted Florentino Luis, and if you are one of those people, you know who you are. He ends up at Burnley. He's 26 years old now. They've got him on loan. Like, he's decent, but it's just a bit confusing. They've signed Ugochukwu. That their squad's just a bit all over the place. But they tried, and I give them credit for that. And they lose James Trafford, and you have to look at that as a big loss for Burnley. I mean, okay, maybe he struggled at City, but for Burnley, he's a massive, massive player. But I give them credit for trying. And we're going to keep this C tier filling up. I'm going to put them above Villa because they've tried. And I don't think Villa were too ambitious enough, to be honest. Even though I think Villa obviously made better signings, you have to look at the size of the club and the respective signings they can afford to make. I think Burnley, they've done the best they could. They've injected around 130 million euros to try and stay up. You've got to give them credit for that. So, not the best window, but I give them credit for trying. That sounds super patronising, but it is what it is. Anyway, Chelsea next then. So Chelsea, I mean, they go crazy. Let me just list off the inflows straight away. Right, João Pedro, Jamie Gittins, Garnacho, Jorel Hato, Liam Delap, Estevao, Dario Esugo, Mamadou Sarr, Kenji Pires. Yeah, is that 10? I mean, you can see I've put the graphic on screen. I hope in editing here you can see who they bought. They signed a lot of players. I mean, that's what Chelsea do now. So let's give you my quick thoughts on some of those. I think João Pedro is a great signing. I think Gittins is a risky signing. I'm not all that high on him. I don't think he's looked great either. Although he did have a great season at Dortmund. Well, great. He had a good season at Dortmund. I think he's inconsistent, which is a problem with all of Chelsea's wingers. Garnacho, exactly the same as Gittins, plays the same position. Very confusing why they would sign him if they signed Gittins as well, but this is just what Chelsea do. Not the biggest fan of the Garnacho signing, don't like his attitude, don't think he's a great player. Hato, really like that signing, think he's really good. They need to give him time to develop. Liam Delap, look, decent player. I think he looks like he has something, but already second choice striker, already hamstring injury. Not sure. Verdict still out on him and what Chelsea do with him. Esteval, brilliant signing. Obviously signed him last season, but arrived this summer, so I'll include it here. He looks fantastic. Really, really talented player. Already playing really well in the Prem. Really good signing. They should be really excited about that one, and I am a bit gutted that they have him. Asugo, don't know really anything about this guy. Mamadou Sarr, don't know. Kendry Pires looks like an amazing young talent. Haven't ever watched him play a full game because I don't watch Independiente, and if anybody does, they are lying, unless they're from, what is it, the Ecuadorian League, Venezuelan League, or I think it's Venezuelan League, Independiente, where Kendry Pires is from. No one's watching that. So you've only watched clips. He looks super talented, but he probably won't even play for Chelsea this year. In fact, has he even gone out on loan? Let's have a look. Yeah, he went to Strasbourg, of course, Chelsea's multi-model club. I mean, you can see the outgoings as well. I have to look this up in real time. But let's talk about the outgoings. This is where Chelsea absolutely excel. They are the best in the world at selling players. The best in the world at selling players. Okay, Madueke, 50 million to Arsenal. Unbelievable. Nkunku, what is it, £35 million-ish to Milan? Unbelievable, considering he was injured the whole time. João Felix to Saudi Arabia, big money, way more money than they should have got for him. Petrovic to Bournemouth, Ugochukwu to Burnley, got a big fee. Dewsbury Hall to Everton, got a big fee. Renato Vega got a big fee. Who else? Broha got a big fee. Chukwuemeka got a big fee. Nicholas Jackson goes to Bayern. It's wild. Chelsea, they are the best in the world at selling players. The best in the world. And they are amazing at it. So much so, they bought all these players. They actually made a profit this summer. You have to give them amazing credit. And for that reason, like, they for me are in A tier. And the only reason they're not in S tier is because the quality of players they brought in don't elevate them to title winning level yet. But Esteval and João Pedro are my favourite two signings they've made. Then Hato, and then everyone else is kind of a tier below, with the jury still out on them. For me, brilliant window for Chelsea once again. Bit of a crazy way they do things, but really, really active in the market and buying talented players and making a lot of money selling players who they've given up on. You have to give them credit, as much as it pains me to do so. Right. Crystal Palace next, and these were a lot less active than Chelsea, but still had a lot going on. Big thing is they sold Eze, but they kept Mark Gehi. Obviously, there was a lot of controversy around that signing. He ended up doing a medical for Liverpool, recorded his goodbye video, and then Palace pulled the plug. So he's going to still be there, but the way that it went down, I wonder if it will affect how he plays, which you have to factor that into your ranking here. But they kept him, so I'll give them credit for keeping him. They lose Eze, who's their best player, probably, especially their best forward player. Look, that's a big loss, but they made decent money on him. They got around 70 million euros. You can't sniff at that for a club like Palace. They reinvested in Jeremy Pino from Villarreal, who is a talented youngster. I think that's a good signing. I mean, a club like Palace to be signing these young players from abroad, it's amazing, really, for a club like them. They should be really excited about that one. And Camvo from Toulouse, 19-year-old centre-back, to give them a bit more depth in that position. I don't know a lot about this guy, but they definitely needed a centre-back. Given they play the back three, and they only really have three proper centre-backs, with Gehi, obviously still there, Richards, Lacroix. I don't think there's anyone else they really would call an out-and-out centre-back. They played Lerma there a lot last year. Klein can sort of fill in a push. So good that they got a centre-back. And then Borna Sosa, a bit of a backup option to Tyrick Mitchell, given that they're in Europe. Look, I think it's a pretty solid window from Palace. I'm pretty impressed with their replacements they did, the business they did to replace Eze. They keep Gehi. Look, there's not much else to say. I think you've got to put them about here, I'd say. B tier. I think they've done okay. Do I think they've actually had a better window than Bournemouth? No. I think they're here. Okay, we'll go to Everton next. Right. Everton, then. So, I'm just going to come right off the bat and say it. I know this is a Liverpool channel. I think Everton have had a belter transfer window. I think it's been a boss transfer window from Everton. I'm really impressed with the business they've done. They're not operating to me like the same Everton we all know and love. So let's look at the players they've got. So the big one, of course, Jack Grealish, they get on loan. He's had a really fairy tale level start to his Everton career, gets 4 assists in 2 games that he started. He couldn't have asked for better. He's already adored by the Everton fans. He seems to be, getting his confidence back, getting that freedom back. Look, it's a great signing, however you want to look at it. To get Grealish playing a level we know he can play out. If Everton get that out of him for a full season, it's an amazing signing. And on loan, yeah, fair play, Everton, fair play. To get Diblin in, who, look, Southampton were awful last year, but Diblin was certainly a bright spark, and I quite liked him last year. He was the only thing about Southampton that was interesting to watch to me, really, last season. I think it's a good signing for Everton. The thing with Everton is that they're signing players now who aren't just there to help them survive in the Prem. They're young players who might improve and might actually get them somewhere. Maybe they can sell them for more money, buy more of them. Maybe they can actually get higher up the table. And I think Diblin fits that. He's only 19. Look, big chunk of money, about £40 million. But look, they've in the new stadium now. They can afford to do this. Good signing. Tierno Barry, I like him as well. Look, they have Beto up front. They let Calvert-Lewin go. I think Barry certainly has more about him than Beto. Even though Beto, look, he's been in the Prem for a little bit of time now. We know what he is. He's not great, but he can be effective sometimes, and he's hilarious to watch. Barry is he's not a finished player by any means. He's very, very, very raw, but he has a lot about his game that I like. And yeah, I think he could be a good signing as well. And then you've got Dewsbury Hall, who's just a solid player and has stuff to his game that isn't just one-dimensional. Like we've seen with a lot of Everton's players over the last few years, that they can maybe run, they can maybe cross, but not a lot else. Dewsbury Hall can score, he can pass the ball, he can be a more defensive midfielder, probably more of an attacking midfielder, and that's where he's been deployed so far. I like that signing. Alcaraz as well, a good signing. They had him on loan at the back end of last season. I like the window. Honestly, I like the window from Everton, and they don't really lose anybody. I mean, they let Calvert-Lewin go for free. That doesn't really affect them at all, given that he was constantly injured. What if I do that? Honestly, I think it's a really good window for Everton. I really, really do. I'm impressed. Yeah, I'm impressed. And we're just going to move on because I don't like being so nice to them. And we'll get to Fulham. This could be one of the quickest ones we do. Look, Fulham make basically 2 signings. Basically. One of them's a fella called Kevin. I'm not joking. He's called Kevin. And if you can guess where he's from, if you guess Brazil, you're spot on. He's one of those fellas is from Brazil, but he's just called Kevin. Look, I don't really know a lot about Kevin. I'll be honest. Once I saw Fulham had signed him in preparation for this video, I did my homework and I watched a little bit of him. Right, he was doing rainbow flicks. So this is the type of player that they've got here. Extremely flary, extremely skillful. Got him from Shakhtar Donetsk for €40 million. They needed another winger, definitely, because they've been playing Castagna on the right wing at the start of the season. And I think he helps them. They could line up with Iwobi, Josh King, and Kevin as the front three behind the striker. They've got Smith Rowe as well, Harry Wilson. They also got Chukwueze on loan. Look, he's absolutely rapid. Didn't really get going at Milan. Had better time at Villarreal, I would say. He's a bit of an inconsistent player, but I think for Fulham's level, it's pretty decent. And they sell Andreas Pereira. Basically, that's it. I don't think it's a massive loss for them. He's been okay for Fulham over the years, but nothing crazy. Kevin, it's all down to him, really, isn't it? What does he end up like? And he certainly looks like he has a lot of tricks up his sleeve. But what have we seen? When was the last winger with talent and tricks and speed come out of Shakhtar Donetsk to the Premier League? What happened to him? Yes, he's banned from the game for 4 years for doping. His name is Mikhailo Mudryk, if any of you have forgotten. So, Fulham. Oh, where do I put Fulham? Here, I think they're just above F for me because of Kevin. Because maybe I'll cut them some slack. He might turn into something, but they could honestly be here. But I'll put them there for now. Right, Leeds. Guys, this one pains me. This one pains me because I don't think they've done enough, guys. And I really like Leeds, and I'm worried about them. I am worried. They just don't have any goals in their team. You can see it already in the first 3 games they've played. They just don't have enough goals. They've signed a lot of players. They signed Stack. They've signed Okafor from Milan, who's a forward player. Looked decent at Salzburg, not so decent at Milan. So we'll see how he turns out in the Prem. I don't think he'll be very good. Biol, Perry's the goalkeeper. That's okay because they shore up that position. They make him the clear number 1, and Meslier goes to the bench. I think that's good. Goodmanson looks like a pretty solid left back they got from Lille. I like him. Longstaff had a great game against Newcastle last time out. Look, we all know about Longstaff. He's Prem proven, but only at a certain level. They get James Justin from Leicester. Yeah, like they need a few more players, but is he going to start consistently over Bogle or Goodmanson? At the fullbacks, I don't know. I don't think he helps them all that much. Calvert-Lewin on loan, I don't rate Calvert-Lewin. I think he'll be injured soon, and even when he's fit, I don't think he's great. Nemecha, I don't rate at all, even though he scored Leeds' only goal, which is a penalty so far this season. If Leeds are going to stay up, it's going to be the defence. It's going to be the midfield, being solid and helping them keep clean sheets and nicking points at home. I just don't think they've done enough. The outgoings, basically non-existent. They lose Firpo, who was great for them last year and a bit of a fan favourite. I don't necessarily like them losing him. Oh, where do I put them? Look, they did more than Fulham, so I've got to put them above Fulham for me, but maybe here I think is fair for Leeds. We might have to revisit this seat a little bit because we're getting a few teams in there now. But yeah, that's what I think for Leeds at the minute. Right, Liverpool. This one's easy. There we go. Should we just move on to City? No, we will talk about Liverpool a little bit. Look, this isn't just my bias talking, I don't think, but this is genuinely one of the best transfer windows we've ever seen a football team have. I honestly do believe that. I mean, you look at Real Madrid in 2008 when they got Ronaldo, Kaká, Xabi Alonso. I mean, that was an unbelievable transfer window and maybe the best ever. But this one's not far behind. You have to look at it and think that. So Liverpool signed Isak for a British record fee, breaking the signing of Florian Wirtz, who happened a couple months earlier, which was a British record fee, with all the add-ons, of course. Unbelievable signings. Genuinely can't believe Liverpool have signed them. It feels like I'm dreaming. I can't wait to watch Isak play. I won't spend all that long on it because I did a whole video on Isak on Friday, which you've all hopefully seen. And if you haven't, go and watch it. Go and check it out. Yeah, you know my thoughts on that transfer. It doesn't take a genius to work out. That's going to be a good transfer. Ekitike looks fantastic. I can't believe he's here as well as those two that we just signed. On top of them, we replaced both fullbacks who needed replacing with Kirkes and Frimpong. Great signings. Leone comes in as a young centre-back, and they should have got Gehi as well, but didn't quite wrap that up. Brilliant. The incomings are unbelievable. And then the outgoings. So Liverpool spent over 450 million euros. It's over 400 million pounds easily. But one thing Liverpool are amazing at, like Chelsea, is selling players. I mean, really good at it. Luis Diaz goes to Bayern for big money. Darwin Nunez, who needed to leave, goes to Saudi Arabia for maybe a bit less money than Liverpool would have wanted, but still big money. Kwanzaa goes to Leverkusen for big money for a player of his level. Ben Doak goes to Bournemouth, we got a good fee for him. Kelleher goes to Brentford, we got a good fee for him. Tyler Morton leaves to Lyon. We even got £10 million for Trent Alexander-fucking-Arnold. I mean, that's insane when you think about it. A player whose contract was what we got 10 million for. Tsimikas goes on loan. Elliott goes as well. It was a real clear out. It was a real... Like, Liverpool won the league last year and basically cleared out the whole team and replaced it with better players. In theory, anyway. Obviously, we have to give these players time, but amazing transfer window. And I don't think we need to talk all that much more about it. I think they're clearly an S tier transfer window and the best of the best in the Premier League this summer. So we'll go to Man City next, who have been the best of the best for maybe the last 10 years in the Premier League. Obviously winning a lot of Premier League titles, and they're trying to get back to that level with this summer's transfer window. I like a lot of their incomings. I like a lot of them. So Reinders, I really, really like. He is a really, really top player. Although they've struggled a little bit, City, to start this season, two defeats in the first 3 games, look, Reinders is a really top quality player, and that's going to be a great signing for City, and a decent fee paid for him as well. They actually got a good deal on that, I think. Aït-Nouri's a good left back. They certainly needed fullbacks. They don't have really any out and out fullbacks except for him. I would say in the team, right backs are definitely a problem for them. I like Aït-Nouri. I'm not maybe as high on him as a lot of people are. I think he's good, but can be a little, I don't know, a little inconspicuous some games is what I'll describe him as. Cherki, extremely, extremely talented, like really, really talented, can use both feet equally as good as the other. Really skillful, really silky player, but I do have questions about his fitness and his ability to adapt to Guardiola's style of play, but really a lot of potential in Cherki. And then the goalkeepers for me don't make sense. This is where the transfer window falls down a little bit for City. Those three other players we just mentioned, great signings. And we took Nipan in as well, young player who's gone out on loan. Good signing. But they get James Trafford. They buy him back from Burnley for a good chunk of money for a goalkeeper. He doesn't really get off to a great start at City, giving the ball away. And then they go to PSG and buy Donnarumma, who has been sold by PSG because he can't use his feet very well. It doesn't make sense to me. It's a little bit haphazard from City, which is kind of not what we've seen from them over the years. But Donnarumma is an amazing goalkeeper. There is no doubt about that. He is an amazing goalkeeper, so you can't sniff at the signing. But they let Ederson go. That's an interesting one. He clearly was out of favour a little bit. I don't really know why, but he was. They sell McAtee. He was never really an established player at City. De Bruyne goes for free. He's kind of at the end of his City career. Gundogan also leaves for free. Similar situation there. Nothing else really. I mean, Grealish goes on loan. He wasn't really pulling up trees at City. Look, I love City's transfer window in parts, but I think they could have done more. I think they need a winger, City. And I don't know. I just don't think they were quite complete. So I'm going to put them here. I think they were slightly worse window than Chelsea, but I like a lot of their signings, so I'm putting them in A tier. Good window for City overall. Then one of the most interesting, the most controversial team in the Premier League. Everybody loves to talk about Man United, and for good reason. They give you something to talk about all the time. Now I'm going to try and talk about this without any bias. I really, really am. But yeah, let's just get into the incomings. So I'll start off with Mbeumo and Cunha. Fantastic signings. Both really good players. Both established in the Premier League. Both going to help Man United. Okay? That's that said. Šeško, on the other hand, the most expensive signing they made, I think it's a massive overpay, first of all. And I also doubt that he will actually play well for United. I worry about him. I've watched him, full games of him, on numerous occasions for Leipzig. I've watched every game United have played so far this season, so I've seen every minute he's played for United. He doesn't seem to have adapted well early doors. Obviously, early doors, so we give him time, but I think he struggles with his back to goal. I think he struggles when he's on his own up front. I think he's better when he has a strike partner like Openda at Leipzig. Yeah, I'm a little worried about him at United, and I'm worried about that signing. I do like the others, and then they also get a goalkeeper. You have to give them credit for that. They finally got a goalkeeper. They've realised they can't go into the season with Onana and Bayinde, the paper mache hand brothers, as their goalkeepers. They just can't. It looks like Onana is actually now going on loan to Trabzonspor. I think that's happening. And they sell. Look, they've made good sales. Honestly, in the end, it took them a while, but they do make good sales. And what I mean by that is some of the types of player they've sold. So Garnacho causing a lot of problems. He leaves. Anthony causing a lot of problems. He leaves. Højlund goes out on loan. He was an absolute disastrous signing. Lindelof finally leaves the club. Rashford causing problems. He goes to Barcelona on loan. I think there's an option to buy there, I think. Sancho causing problems. He leaves. Like, all these players that were causing Man United problems, they have left, a lot of them. So, honestly, you have to give them credit for that. Although they didn't make all that much money, and they spent a lot of money, despite them saying constantly that they don't have all that much to spend. So, where do I put them? Where do I put them? It is so hard. My initial instinct says they're either here or they're here. And that basically comes down to, do I think they had a better transfer window than Arsenal? And I think ultimately you can't say they did. You can't say they did. So for me, they go there in B tier. I think the signing of Eze is the best signing of all those players. I think that alone basically puts them here. Both had similar windows in terms of they spent a lot of money, didn't recoup a lot back. I just put them here. I worry about Shesko. I really do worry about Shesko. And Lemons as well, the goalkeeper they signed. I don't know anything about him. So we'll see if he's any decent at all. Right. Newcastle. I'm absolutely sick to death of Newcastle as a Liverpool fan. To be honest, they have infuriated me for weeks and weeks and weeks. I'm sick of hearing about them. I never want to hear about them ever again, but I'll talk about them here for the transfer window. And honestly, in the end, they've had a really good one. They have had a really, really good transfer window. They got a British record fee for Isak. They got a load of money for him, 130 million going to Newcastle. Look, it's a brilliant sale, regardless of how good he is. It's one of the most expensive transfers of all time. You have to say that's good business from Newcastle. They sign Voltemada, who is really talented, already starting for Germany, had a great season in the Bundesliga last year at Stuttgart. Top player, but certainly needs work, I think. That's evident. So we'll see how he gets on. You can't really, judge him yet. He's not played for Newcastle, but I like the signing, their record signing as well, to the ambitions there. Elanga, I think he's a really dangerous player, really, really fast winger, suits their style at Newcastle, so I love that signing for them. Visser, I also really like that signing. They overpaid for him, definitely overpaid, but the money they got from Isak allowed them to do so. I think their strike force looks better than it actually did in terms of depth last season. I mean, they have Isak and Wilson last year, and they end up this year with Voltemada and Visser. I think, given that they're in the Champions League, they need those two strikers who are both top level. I think they've got that now, so give them credit for that. Jacob Ramsey, I think, is a solid signing, and Malik Thiaw, I like him as well. I think he's got a lot of talent at centre-back. I liked him at Milan when I've seen him play. So, I guess what I'm saying is, I like the window for Newcastle. And amazingly, after all the drama, I'm going to put them here. I think they've had a really, really good window. I really like a lot of their signings, and that's where I'm going to put them. Right. Forest, next up. First thing I want to say about Forest is, it's clear somebody at Nottingham Forest has been watching Botafogo, because they've signed 4 players from Botafogo this summer. I don't know any of them. Igor Jesus, Jair Cunha, Jean Victor, and Cuiabano. Never heard of these guys in my life. They might be good, they might be shit, I don't know. Never heard of them. I have heard of Douglas Luiz. I think he's a solid signing. Was really good at Villa when he got his move to Juventus, and then didn't really ever kick on at Juventus. So back to the Premier League he comes. I think that's a good signing. Zinchenko doesn't do a lot for me, really. Don't really think he's amazing. Although, I think he got a lot of unfair criticism at Arsenal, but he's okay. Hutchinson's an overpay. Don't rate him, really. Dan Ndoye looks pretty decent. I've seen him in the Euros for Switzerland. That's all I've really seen of him, but he looks pretty good to start off, so it's okay. I don't know anything about Bakwa or Kalimwendo, I'll be honest. McAtee's a decent signing, that's not bad. He's had good moments for Man City, but I don't know how great he is, but I don't mind it. They kept hold of Gibbs White, a bit controversially, but they did. This one's hard to judge because I don't know a lot about a lot of these players who they've signed. I really don't. If you look at their outgoings, they sell Elanga, and then the others they sell, not really doing anything in terms of playing a lot of heavy minutes, being a key player for Forest. So, where do you put them? It's tough to say. But I think because you don't know so much about it, it's got to be sort of slap bang in the middle, hasn't it? I think worse than Bournemouth, but better than Palace. Do I think worse than Bournemouth? Yes, I do. That's where I'm going to go with Forest. Making a nice staircase here, aren't we? No one in F tier yet. Don't worry, there will be soon. But Sunderland are next up, and I'm shocked by Sunderland. Big club, as we know, but wow. I mean, wow. Nearly 200 million euros spent. Unbelievable transfer window from Sunderland. Unbelievable. They get Diarra, is the record signing. Um, I love this signing. I've been watching things about Diarra for a year. He's an absolute all-action midfielder, and I could 100% see Sunderland getting a good fee for him if they manage to stay up this season. I think he'll be an absolute key player. I really like him. Dingra, like, he's hit and miss for me. I'm not too sure about him. Enzo Lefebvre, they get back from when they had him on loan last year. He's a good player. They get Robbie. He's had a couple failed moves, not so sure, but worth a punt for Sunderland. They need a striker, maybe. Xhaka is a brilliant signing. Like, we know what he's capable of. He's getting up there in age, but he's so solid. It's going to help them so much with that experience. They've already made him captain, or at least, I don't know if he's club captain, but he's been captain in them. Yeah, really, really good signing. And Mukiele from PSG as well. Like, these are really good signings. Alderate from Getafe, showing up the defence. They basically got a whole new team, and unfortunately, that is what they needed to do after coming up from the Championship. I love this transfer window. There's a lot of unknowns in there as well, but I just really think they've done a good job. Reynildo at left back. They've signed a good mix of young players who can help them in Diarra, Adingra, Taibbi, or Talbi. I can never remember if his name is Talbi or Taibbi, but the winger, the right winger they signed, Sadiki as well. These youngsters, and then they got Xhaka, they got Reynildo, Mukiele, Alderate. The experience is going to help them so much, and they've signed those players to be more the defensive side of things. I think it's really smart. For me, there's not much else to say. They lose Joe Bellingham. I think they've more than replaced him. They lose Tom Watson. Again, I think they've replaced him as well. For me, it's S tier. Brilliant transfer window from Sunderland. Really impressed. Hope they stay up, to be honest. Really do. Right, and then Spurs. I mean, the good keeps on rolling, doesn't it? Spurs. I really like Spurs' transfer window. I think it is really impressive. I'm maybe a bit higher on this than some people are, but Javi Simmons, like, they signed Javi Simmons because they miss out on Eze and they miss out on Gibbs White, but I think they ended up with the best signing of the three there. Not that I think Simmons is better than Eze. I think Eze is a better player right now, but Simmons is 5 years younger, not that much worse, and has potential to be better. I think for Spurs' position right now, that's a really exciting signing, and it might be Spurs' most exciting signing in some time, to be honest. Really love that signing. Really like Javi Simmons. Kudus as well. Love that signing for Spurs. He needs to work on his output. Said this about him, but he's super skilled, strong. His ball retention's fantastic. He's got a good passing range. He's got a great shot. He's versatile. I just really like him. I think he's a great player. They get Tell on the permanent deal. He's a young player, certainly got talent, certainly got potential. Danso they get on the permanent deal as well. They get Vuksovic, who's one of the most promising young centre-backs in Europe, but how much game time will he get? Not sure. João Palhinha, I love this signing. He was brilliant against Man City. My man of the match in that game for Spurs. I think he's a really top player. Didn't have the best time at Bayern Munich, but we saw his quality at Fulham. I think he's really good. And then they get Koulibaly on deadline day to help them at striker. With Solanke's injury, with Richarlison there. As for the firepower. Really good. Who do they lose? Son. It's a loss. He's been there for a long time, we know. But he was definitely coming to the end of his career. Goes to America. They actually made a good amount of money on him going to America. And not a lot else. Lose Højbjerg. He was out of favour. For me, Spurs, a bit of a weird badge here. Only half the what is it? The chicken or whatever. But S tier window for me. Really good transfer window from Spurs. Right. And that leaves us with two left, West Ham and Wolves. We'll start with West Ham, obviously. They made a few more signings towards the end of the window. They get Mateus Fernandes in from Southampton. Aside from Diblin, he was Southampton's most exciting player. I think he's alright, but that's about it. He's 21 years old, so he could definitely improve. He played in West Ham's really good win against Forest, which changed West Ham's sort of the outlook on West Ham at a really important time going into the international break. I worry for Graham Potter if they'd have lost that game. But that's really it. They got Todibo on the permanent deal. I'm not impressed by Todibo at all. I don't think he looks very good, to be honest. And then they get Juve, who I actually like at left wing back. I think he's pretty good. Very, very attacking fullback. Great engine on him, really dynamic. I like that signing. And then they signed a guy from Monaco called Magassa, who I've never heard of in my life. A midfielder. Never heard of this guy, to be honest. Wilson and Walker-Peters on frees. Don't move the needle for me. They lose their best player, though, Kudus. They kept Paqueta. That's something good. But for me, I hate to do it to them. Well, actually, I don't really like West Ham. I put them in F tier. For where West Ham are trying to go, to think they won a European trophy not so long ago, I just think it's such a poor, uninspiring window. I know they got that good win against Forest, but someone has to be an F tier, and I'm putting West Ham there. They're F tier for me. I think they had a really poor window. Just don't think they've done a lot to improve their team at all, really. And last but not least, we have Wolves. Right, so Wolves get Strand Larsen on a permanent deal, and they kept hold of him. That was crucial. If they sold him, it was they were all the way over here in right at this end of F tier. But they've popped in there, and to be honest, they popped there, and that's where I'm going to put them anyway. I can't seem to move them out, but that's where they're going to end up, because I think they had the worst transfer window of any team in the Premier League this summer. They signed Strand Larsen, but that was already sort of done because he was there last year. They get a striker from Genk called Tolu Arakodare. Never heard of this guy ever. Hopefully he's all right for Wolves' sake. They get John Arias, who I actually think looked quite decent in the Club World Cup, but he's a Maverick type player. I don't know how good he'll be in the Prem. Fer Lopez, who has scored like a handful of goals in his career. Sign a centre-back from Girona on loan. Yeah, I don't know a lot about him. They get Wolfie to replace Aït-Nouri. I don't know about that. I think that's a downgrade. And then they sell Cunha and Aït-Nouri, their best two players. It's a real struggle. It's a real struggle for me for Wolves this season. I think they had the worst transfer window. And I guess that is where we're going to leave the tier list. I don't feel like I need to adjust anything there. That's what I think. I'll leave that there. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the placements there. Let me know in the comments below what you think. But yeah, that's what I am going to leave the tier list as. Well, every Premier League team's transfer window 2025 summer edition. All right, guys, that is going to be it for today's video. I hope you did enjoy. And if you did enjoy, please do leave a like on the video. It really does help me out. And the numbers have been amazing recently, so let's keep it up. And like I said at the start of the video, thank you so much for 100 subscribers. Let's see if we can get to 150. Subscribe to the channel. Let's keep growing, because we're going to have more and more videos coming out like this and about Liverpool for you to hopefully all enjoy. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening, if you did listen on the podcast as well. We're back before the end of next week with another video to keep you entertained in the international break. So until then, everyone, I hope you have a good rest of your weekend and a good start to your week coming up. I'll speak to you all very soon. Goodbye.